Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu. The news is also live on Kazmi 107.1 FM and across the world at freenews.com. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Ghana Education Service temporarily shuts down experimental junior high school at Newtown after an abandoned school structure collapsed, killing 3 people and leaving 20 others injured. We're live as security personnel continue to clear debris from the site. Also on the program, Public Accounts Committee sits today to examine the Auditor General's report on government outstanding claims and commodities. And much later on the program, the the Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey demands urgent action from President Mahama to end what it describes as a worsening fight against illegal mining in the country. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Earth-moving machines are clearing debris from the site of a school building collapse that occurred during a church service on Sunday as investigations into the incident began. 3 people have been confirmed dead after the uncompleted school structure caved in on worshippers. 20 others who were rescued are currently receiving treatment at various health facilities across the capital city, Accra. Here is more in the following report.
And confusion gripped Accra Newtown on Sunday afternoon after a multi-story school building suddenly collapsed, burying worshippers and other occupants under heaps of concrete and twisted metal. Witnesses say the incident happened around 1 p.m., sending shockwaves through the densely populated community as screams for help filled the air.
They do have people here right now, we say. Because like you look at this before I hear the thing. Since I build the bridge for the Rako down here. People hear the school. What I say. So now how the thing there, people they inside will plenty. If you change what they do for inside, you get me. If you change what they do for inside. But still people they inside where they feel they don't feel command them yet. But right now they come out somewhere right now. If you see in leg, once I not busy, you know feel watch them. But God grace, we did talk small we do them.
Within minutes, rescue teams including emergency personnel and community volunteers rushed to the scene to begin a desperate search for survivors. Residents joined in the effort, using their bare hands and simple tools to remove debris before heavy equipment was later brought in to support the operation. Video and eyewitness accounts from the scene showed rescuers carefully pulling victims from the rubble, while anxious relatives and residents gathered nearby hoping for good news. Some survivors were rescued alive and rushed for medical attention as the operation intensified into the evening.
Out of the 23, the total number of females among them are 14 and 15, with 8 being male. Out of these, we have minors that are 7. But those who have lost their life, there's no minor among the dead. All of them are adults, which is very unfortunate. But the rest are coping very well. But some of them were being discharged. Now we insisted that look, just make sure that nobody goes home and later have challenges. So it's just so unfortunate. And we've seen what we've tried to do. We brought in the police canine dogs, and then we brought in the narcotics control commission's canine dogs, and then the military. And we made sure that they went through one after the other, and to be sure that there's no resemblance of some other persons trapped in there. So for now, at least with what the dogs have done, with what the military have cross-checked, we can say with some maybe 90 to 95% certainty that we don't have any other persons in. So meaning that largely, in terms of rescue, we may say the rescue is coming to an end, but they will have to continue with the operation of the debris.
But amid the rescue came tragedy. Reports indicate that at least 3 people lost their lives in the collapse, although officials are expected to confirm the final casualty figures after a full head count and search of the debris. The scale of destruction has once again raised serious concerns about the safety of aging and poorly maintained structures in the capital.
Come tomorrow, students shouldn't be at school. Tomorrow they shouldn't be there. Let's see what we can do for them. If we need to hold the place, the rest of the other compound can be restored.
Authorities are expected to begin investigations into the cause of the collapse as questions grow over whether the building was structurally sound and fit for use.
There was a news desk report. Meanwhile, personnel from the Engineering Regiment of the Ghana Armed Forces with support from the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, have begun clearing rubble from the collapsed building as investigations continue. As a safety precaution, authorities have temporarily closed down the experimental junior high school. The exercise is being coordinated by Lieutenant Colonel Amponsa, who spoke to Mawina Egbeta earlier.
Last night, we had a report of the building collapse at Newtown, where we are currently located. And as part of our mandate, we quickly deployed personnel and then the needed equipment support to help rescue the victims of the unfortunate disaster. Upon arrival here, we established the interagency collaboration with the NADMO, which is the lead agency, as well as the Ghana Police Rep, the National Ambulance, the Fire Service. And let me acknowledge the fact that the first responders, that is the people within the general area, also played a very vital role. So since our deployment, series of activities have been conducted. The initial phase of activity was to establish cording in order to provide security at the incident area. Sequel to that, we engage in the search and then the rescue activities. And as of this morning, I'm confident to say that we have made significant efforts in terms of the number of personnel that have been rescued. We have rescued 20 personnel. Unfortunately, 3 are dead, making 23 victims. Yes. So we have rescued 20 victims and then recovered 3 dead bodies, making 30. So making 23. So basically, that is the activities we have done so far. As of this morning, we continue with the demolition of the rubbles. And as you can see, we have reached the base of the storyboarding, and there is no individual trap or victim trap under.
Because that was one of the concerns, that there could still be persons inside the rubble, but you say that as you've reached the base, there's no such thing.
Yes, there's no such individual who is currently trapped under the collapsed structure.
So we're at the base, we've seen the rubble. What is expected to happen today?
Okay, so our future engagement or our current activity is to clear the debris in order to make sure that the area is free from this unfortunate incident. So that's operation.
We know that this place is a school. As at the time we've been here, we've not seen any of the students making their way here. Does it mean that this place is off limits for all persons as work continues today?
Well, that is the decision of the school authority. But looking at the situation here, I think it's not an ideal for the school children to embark on their school activity for today, at least for today. It will be prudent for the place to be cleared for them to start school.
And you have the man leading the Engineering Regiment of the Ghana Armed Forces, Lieutenant Colonel Amponsa. Let's go over now to television because Mawina Egbeta is currently speaking on TV. Bring us the latest from there.
Calls to raise concerns as to the integrity of the building, and they felt it was weak at some point in time. That's what it's been up until yesterday. In fact, I spoke to one of the eyewitnesses who lives just a few meters away from this place, that they had finished service in terms of Muslim prayers and was making his way around this area when they heard the loud thundering collapse. They rushed in and began to, within the best of their ability, help as many individuals as possible. That's what we know in terms of the structure and its status up until yesterday. With respect to the individuals who are on board, we know that one of such persons was the head pastor of the church, which was holding service here, which collapsed. We understand that they hold service here up to 3 times a day. There's a morning service, an afternoon service, and then they return in the evening for prayers as well. It was in the regions of the afternoon service when the building began to cave in. As to what may have occasioned what resulted in its collapse, we're not so sure. But the pastor is one, and then as well, 2 women whose identities we continue to not know at this point in time. But the pastor who was leading the service was identified and was also rushed to the hospital. Kemeni.
I see. Mona.
And you had there Mawina Egbeta speaking on TV, bringing us the latest from the Newtown building collapse that has claimed 3 lives, 20 others injured. Earlier on TV on New Day, we had the Colonel, Lieutenant Colonel Amponsa also telling us that indeed 3 out of the 20 who were hospitalized after the accident had been discharged last night. We'll bring you more from the scene as and when we have the latest from there. But still on this, the Vice President, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, has visited the scene of the accident and also checked on victims receiving treatment at various hospitals. Relatives of one of the deceased victims also shared their grief with us. Joseph Armstrong Alugbi engaged them.
I actually left Tomel in the morning around 7 a.m. when it was raining to church. She was asleep by then when I left for church. And so sometime around 4 p.m., I saw my phone ringing several times. There was a call from my senior brother, but I was in a church meeting, so I couldn't pick it up. Later, I realized my backbone was also calling me several times. So when I got out of the church meeting, I returned my backbone's call, and she was just panting like that. She was actually speaking in Akan, where she mentioned that the building where my mom's church has collapsed on them. I was a bit confused. Collapsed? How? And she said, yes, that is what has happened. She was to go to church with my mother, but she insisted on not going several times. My mom forced her several times.
But your mother wanted to go with one of your siblings?
Yes, please, our last born.
Is it something she always do?
Yes, she goes to church with her. But for yesterday, reasons best known to her, she decided not to go with my mother.
How old is this young girl?
She's 17 years old.
She's 17?
Yes, please.
Okay.
She was forced several times, but she still insisted she wasn't going with my mother. So out of anger, my mom left her behind and she went to church. And so she said she was in the house. The church is not too far from the house, just a walking distance. So she was in the house when she heard this loud noise just across the street. And she overheard people saying it is the church, where the church is usually held, the building has been collapsed, and there was service ongoing when it collapsed. She got scared because she knew my mom had left to church, so she's likely to be trapped in the collapsed building. So quickly she had to set off to the place. She went, lo and behold, what she heard was true. The building had collapsed, and a few area boys had thronged the place to actually find possible means to rescue those who had been trapped in the building. I was in Dansuman at the time when I spoke with her, so I had to call my senior brother, whose call I had missed earlier, and she also confirmed that our backbone called him to deliver same news to him. So I had to rush to Accra Newtown to confirm the news for myself. And upon arrival, I realized people from near and far thronged the place. The whole street was filled up with people, and there were...
It's sad.
The whole place was actually filled with people. The rescue team was trying their possible means to actually rescue those who had been trapped in the building.
So did you get to see your mom?
I'm only getting to see my mom at the mortuary.
So you rushed the mortuary and then that's where you saw her?
She's part of those who were rescued last night.
Was she rescued alive?
She was rescued unconscious. So as to if she was alive, she was dead, I can't confirm, but she was motionless at the time when she was rescued. But the confirmation was actually made at the hospital.
And you had there one of the sons of one of the victims of the building collapse, a 58-year-old woman who was part of the 3 individuals who died in yesterday's building collapse. I did tell you that the Vice President, Professor Nana Jane-Pukwajiman, also visited the hospital to, as it were, see the victims who were hospitalized. Evelyn Tingma is with her. She joins us live on the phone. Evelyn, what can you tell us?
Yeah, so Beatrice, so earlier this morning, the Vice President, Professor Nana Jane-Pukwajiman, was at the accident scene, and where she had to get some certain information from authorities on the ground. So talking about NADMO, the fire service, and other response and rescue team members who were there. And so where she interacted with people over there, and in fact, she was really disturbed about the situation, and she had to query how come that particular building was put up there. So you realize that one official was telling her that that building was put up some years ago, and she was not really happy about that. And she said that should not be tolerated going forward. Such things should not be done. And so from there, she moved to the various hospitals where we have some victims there. She first went to the 37 military hospital, where she interacted with some of the victims over there. And she also commended the staff there for taking care of the casualties and for responding quickly to the situation. So from there, from 37 military hospital, she went to the police hospital, where she also interacted with some of the victims there, and as well as the staff over there. And then from there, she went to the University of Ghana Medical Center, where we also have some other victims over there. So in all, she interacted with them, and she wished them speedy recovery, and also commended the staff for the work that they are doing over there. So she actually sympathized with the victims over there, and asked that going forward, building regulations should be adhered to, on the laws should also be adhered to, Beatrice.
Did the Vice President make any commentary as regards who should be held accountable and any directives in that direction?
Not that she didn't say that, but she was only querying them as to why that particular building should be put up there. And so she was particular about going forward. Such situations should not occur. The laws should be adhered to. If a building is being put up, who is responsible, what should be done, and all that. So people should adhere to what should be done going forward to make sure that such occurrences do not occur. And so she was much particular about that. But to give a directive as to who should do what, that she couldn't do. Maybe that was done closed door, but that the media was not privy to.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Evelyn Tingma, who is with the Vice President, of course, was with her earlier as well, visited the victims at the police and 37 military hospitals. Now, Deputy Finance Minister Thomas Nyakwampim has disclosed that one of the companies cited for various infractions in the Auditor General Special Report has made payment of 19.1 million cedis to the state a week after findings of the report was made public. Rans Logistics was mentioned for its involvement in a scandal involving missing grains and overpayment for services, as well as thousands of tons of rice and maize that disappeared without account. But appearing before the Public Accounts Committee today, the Deputy Finance Minister disclosed that Rans Logistics has made some payment with the expectation that 7,000 tons of grains would also be reimbursed. Christian Yale is our man in Parliament. He joins us live on the line. Chris, what more was found about this company and really the justification given from the Ministry for this special audit?
Hi, Beatrice, can you hear me?
Yes, Chris, we can hear you. I hope you heard my question.
Yeah, so what we know is that this sourcing, pricing and payment as has been spoken about, took place in 2024, especially during the time that there was this unusually longer than expected dry spell, which was affecting a lot of crops and farming across the country, especially in the north. And so this company, we understand, Rams Logistics, was paid or had an amount accumulated to around 57 million cedis to undertake the supply of grains to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture at the time. The understanding we have seen is that as of the time it was happening, the company in question, Rams Logistics, was not a legally registered entity as of the time. So what the Auditor General has stood out in the special report. And again, we equally do understand that out of this amount, the 57 million, which is currently being discussed because the Ministry of Food and Agriculture is before the committee as I speak, after that, about 19.1 million cedis has been refunded by the company to the state. The Deputy Finance Minister, Thomas Ampin, made the indication that from their end as a ministry, they have already started making payment for some of these claims that have been validated. We can take a listen to what he told the committee a while ago.
Dr. Atu commissioned this audit to be sure of what he was going to use public funds to pay. And so subsequent to the validation, we have started in earnest in paying those that have been duly validated. In fact, the audit process gave opportunity to all those transactions that were rejected and those that were pending for publication. In fact, they were published, and individuals, companies were given the opportunity to question the decision of the auditors. And so this has been done prudently, and we believe that at the end of this exercise, as a country, we'll all see the need to improve on areas that need improvement. I just want to give one example to show the importance of the audit to us as a nation. On the 10th of March, I came to Parliament to present the findings of the audit and the subsequent referral to this committee. And exactly a week after, on the 17th of March, one of the companies that were identified to be associated with.
And you heard that Deputy Finance Minister Thomas Ampim Nyako. Christian Yale is still on the line with us. Chris, I know that the Attorney General plays a very critical role in some of these infractions as well. What can you tell us as regards the way forward?
Yes, so most of these infractions are pertaining to payments made to companies or contractors or suppliers without necessary supporting documents. There are instances that we know that there were projects or contracts awarded even without commencement certificate. In that, the Ministry of Finance, especially the Chief Director, indicates that they had a module where some of these things happen and just get a memo or an approval certificate from the minister, and then that qualifies as the commencement certificate. So those are some of the infractions that have been running through most of the agencies or the MDAs that have come before the Public Accounts Committee. The Deputy Finance Minister says the Attorney General with his team will soon come out with necessary recommendations to cater for some of these infractions. We can take care of him again.
The Attorney General is working with his team to recommend the right course of action for all these infractions that have been identified. So this is to show that the audit was necessary, the audit was intended and is beginning to achieve its purpose of saving and protecting public funds. Thank you.
Once again, you had the Deputy Finance Minister Thomas Ampim Nyako. Christian Yale, let's wrap up our conversation. What else should we expect today?
Right, so as we speak, the earlier, just a while ago, there was the Ministry of Trade, Agribusiness and Industry that came to answer some questions based on some of the infractions, largely, like I said, about payment irregularities. Now there is the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. One thing that has come up has been largely a bit of contradiction between what auditors are saying and what the Agric ministry officials are saying. On one hand, we have had the Agric officials saying that the auditors, upon meeting suppliers and contractors, do not come back to the ministry to validate some of the issues that the contractors or suppliers have raised. And we have had the auditors refuting that claim and saying that they hold several meetings and even exit meetings with the ministry to bring back some of the concerns they get upon meeting the contractors or suppliers. And so that was a bit of contradictory remarks or exchanges between the two parties a while ago, which yielded in the intervention of one of the committee members who was of the view that someone was not telling the truth, because if there are some contradictions like that, especially when they have sworn oath to tell the truth, then it raises a question. But that has been put aside, and we are now looking again at the RANS logistics issue that involves about 57 million cedis for the supply of grains and the rest. So far, the meeting is ongoing, and it has been very smooth so far.
Thank you very much, Christian Yale. He's our parliamentary affairs correspondent. Now, the Ghana Coalition Against Galamsey is raising concern over what it describes as a worsening fight against illegal mining and is calling on President John Mahama to take urgent action. In a statement, the coalition said that although early government efforts showed some progress, the overall situation remains largely unchanged. It warned that growing impunity among some enforcement agencies and officials is worsening the crisis, threatening forests, rivers, and public health. The coalition said again that the number of forest reserves affected by illegal mining has increased from 45 to at least 50, covering more than 9,000 hectares, and we'll bring you some more in our subsequent bulletins. Some more here, and the Accra High Court has notified lawyers of the defunct Men's Gold CEO Nana Pia Mensah, also known as NAM1, that the proceedings will be switched to virtual or electronic means. This was after the court acknowledged receipt of a medical excuse from NAM1 with a note from the doctor that the accused refrained from maximal physical exertion. Nana Pia Mensah is facing multiple counts of defrauding by false pretense, operating a gold firm without license, and money laundering. He has pleaded not guilty and is on bail. Lord Eduasare is our court affairs correspondent. He joins us live on the line. Lord, what can you report?
Right, so Beatrice, basically, NAM1 has been in court. He has started giving his evidence in chief. But today, when the proceedings began, lawyers for the third accused being remarketing counsel. You know, there are three accused persons. NAM1, the Men's Gold, and then the third being remarketing counsel. So his lawyers and he himself were absent in court today. Now, the presiding judge read a medical excuse from a doctor of NAM1 indicating that he is unavailable and should not undertake any strenuous exercise for about 3 weeks. Now, after reading that, the judge indicated that although we couldn't go into the details of that medical excuse, what it essentially meant was that the man cannot make himself available in court. However, he can still be in his home, relax, and provide his evidence in chief. And so the judge indicated that moving on, the case will be heard via electronic means, meaning that they'll provide him with a video link for him to give his evidence in chief. Now, the lawyer who was holding brief for him indicated that simply the medical excuse was supposed to, as it were, they were praying for an adjournment because Naman will be unavailable for the 3 weeks. And even after the 3 weeks, there wasn't any confirmation that he would be available because per the details of the excuse, after the 3 weeks, he's going to run some tests and then they'll know if he can continue with any strenuous physical exertion. And so because of this, the judge indicated that the case cannot come to a halt because of what happened to him. What the medical excuse just sought to say is that he cannot come to court physically, but I mean, we're in 2026, and there's also the option to look at the virtual means. And so Nana Mensa is expected to give his evidence in chief via a video link, and this will be done on Wednesday.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lord Edwasare. He's our court affairs correspondent. And that's it for the midday news here on Shri FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Log on to shrinews.com for more news.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Business Daily on 3FM 92.7. Coming up this afternoon, finance and tax analysts urge competitive rates as government returns to the domestic bond market today.
We expect some level of readjustment in terms of the price. And so once that is done, a lot more activity will go into the bonds that the government will issue.
Also, Ghana stock market values drops by 47.8 billion cedis as investors sell off their shares. At March later, Center of Extractive and Development Africa warns minerals income investment fund structures risk mineral reserve stability and independence.
Our MIF has been set up to reinvest monies largely in the mining sector. So we are still exposed to that particular volatility.
We have details of our headlines and other stories. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Now to a first story. Financial and tax analyst Nelson Kujo-Kwagbaji is calling on government to offer highly competitive interest rate as it prepares to re-enter the domestic bond market today. He warned that a successful return hinges entirely on investor appetite and market realistic pricing. The government re-enters the domestic bond market with a 7-year cedi-dominated issuance, marking its first such move since 2023, the debt restructuring program.
This will be the first cedi bond issuance since 2022, following restrictions imposed under the domestic debt exchange program in 2023, which halted new bond issuance after the country's debt default. Government is expected to announce the coupon rate on April 1, with settlement scheduled for April 7, 2026.
We expect some level of readjustment in terms of the price. And so once that is done, a lot more activity will go into the bonds that the government will issue. We also expect the rates to hover around the DDP bond rate. Once that is done, it will serve as an incentive to investors. And so we are keenly watching the market to see how the reintroduction of the bonds into the markets will have a general impact on the Ghana's capital markets.
Investors will be required to bid a minimum of 50,000 cedis, with the offer open to both resident and non-resident participants. Proceeds from the bond are expected to support financing of projects captured in the 2026 budget. 6 institutions, Absa Bank Ghana, Cal Bank PLC, FinCap Securities, GCB Bank PLC, One Africa Securities, and the Stanbic Bank Ghana, have been appointed as bond market specialists for the issuance. Government says the move is aimed at rebuilding a domestic funding program, managing liquidity, refinancing maturing debts, and restoring confidence in the bond market.
And that was a report on finance and tax analyst Nelson Kujo Kwagbachi urging competitive rates as government eyes domestic bond market return later today. Meanwhile, Government of Ghana's latest Treasury bill auction held on March 27, 2026, ended a significant shortfall as investor interest failed to meet the state's ambitious borrowing target. This is the second undersubscription this year.
Government sought to raise 4.932 billion cedis. However, total offers from investors amounted to only 3.939 billion cedis, representing an undersubscription rate of 20.14% relative to the target. In a move to manage borrowing cost, the government was selective with its intake, ultimately accepting 3.234 billion cedis. The acceptance rate was 82.11% of the bids submitted by investors. Government chose to take less, rejecting higher interest bids to stabilize the yield curve. The 91-day bill remained the most active instrument, drawing 2.550 billion cedis in bids, of which government accepted 2.213 billion cedis at a yield of 4.81%. Demand for the 182-day bill saw offers of 76 million cedis, with 661 million cedis accepted at an interest rate of 6.62%. Meanwhile, the 364-day bill attracted 625 million cedis in bids, with government taking 359 million cedis at a yield of 9.77%. Market analysts suggest government's decision to accept less than the total offers, despite missing the overall target, indicates a strategic push to keep interest rates from spiraling upward.
And that was a 3-business report on the government's Treasury bill auction hitting its second target shortfall this year, despite the yield gains. Now, away from that, the Ghana Stock Exchange endured a bruising week as a wave of bearish sentiment swept through the local bourse, erasing significant year-to-date gains and dragging down the key performance indices. Data released at the close of the trading week reveals a sharp correction in the market's value, driven by a lack of buying pressure and a cautious outlook from both institutional and retail investors.
The Ghana Stock Exchange GSE faced a massive sell-off this week as intensifying bearish sentiment dragged down key indices and erased billions in the market value. The benchmark GSE Composite Index plummeted by 2,701.90 points, causing its year-to-date return to crash from 78.92% to 48.11% in just 1 week. The financial sector also took a hit, with the GSE Financial Stock Index shedding over 1,470 points to end with a year-to-date return of 80.20%. Total market capitalization felt the brunt of the decline, falling by 47.85 billion cedis to close at 245.61 billion cedis. Despite the falling prices, trading activity actually surged. Investors traded 75.08 million shares, nearly double the previous week's volume, valued at 385.56 million cedis. Analysts suggest this notable paradox of high activity during a price drop indicates a rush for liquidity as investors exit positions amid growing market uncertainty.
Now, away from that, the Executive Director for the Center for Extractive and Development Africa, Samuel Bequin, has issued a stern warning regarding the structural and governance framework of the Minerals Income Investment Fund. Bequin argued that the fund's current setup leaves Ghana's economy vulnerable to the inherent volatility of the mining sector. He pointed out a critical flaw in the MIF's investment strategy, its narrow concentration within the extractive center. Take a listen.
In most cases, you set up those funds as a vehicle to receive wealth or resources from a sector, and usually sovereign wealth funds are largely funded by extractives or natural resources, because we all know the risk, the inherent risk with these natural resources, particularly because we are price takers. The volatility means that it is very difficult for you to project or predict what a sector could be. In the last 2 weeks, gold was doing 5,500 compared to today 4,500 or even less. That is a whooping $1,000. So the volatility, our MIF, and if you look at the Norwegian fund, if you look at Botswana, among others, the kind of investment target for those funds are to dive away from that extractive sector, provide opportunity to invest in other sectors that may be growth poles for such countries. But our MIF has been set up to reinvest monies largely in the mining sector. So we are still exposed to that particular volatility.
And you heard the voice of the Executive Director for the Center for Extractive and Development Africa, Samuel Bequin. That brings us to the end of Business Daily on 3FM 92.7. For more news, please check our website at 3news.com. I am Enyuna Maliga. Stay with us.